And I think that's $1 million question because it has such implications for the banks and financial institutions when they're selling these financial products. I think what's very clear from the judgment is that a bank can't blindly rely on information it receives from a fund manager. That information isn't usually in the form of a fact sheet or an update. Now, the reality is, I think, going forward, that the banks will have to show, if this goes before a court, they'll have to demonstrate to the court that on the balance of probabilities, they have reasonable grounds to believe that at the relevant time, and that's the critical point, that the information they gave to the client was true. Now, the bank can do this by showing that it conducted its own due diligence with reasonable skill and care. It also means that the banks will have to make sure that their own due diligence process is robust enough and can stand the scrutiny from the court and the SFC. So the question is then, well, how can they do that? Well, they can do that by making sure at the outset, when they receive information from the fund manager, that they don't just sit there and be happy with what they've received. They have to review it in detail, and they have to request more information and more documents to support the information that they've already received. Now, there's two advantages of, if you like, having a greater degree of scrutiny on the information which is received from the fund manager. Firstly, it obviously gives evidence that the bank can rely on to show that it had reasonable grounds to believe at the time that the information it received from the fund manager was true. But secondly, it's very important because it also helps the bank show that the investor was not actually relying on the information which was being provided by the bank. So the more information the bank can produce to the investor, which clearly was information which emanated from the fund manager, then the bank's essentially shifting any potential liability onto the fund manager.